Today on Investigate TV Plus, families struggle to find available nursing homes with quality care as the industry faces its own crisis.
The result of all of the short staffing is that people's health is not what it should be.
We examine a new government mandate designed to help that has mixed reviews.
She would fall, she would get bruises, she would have cuts on her. No one was watching her.
And speak to a woman who believes a lack of trained workers may have played a part in her mother's death.
Plus,
who's going to carry a baby for us? Like that's a tough thing, you know?
a labor of love delivers new hope for one family.
For me, it was no big deal.
We share their inspiring story and examine some barriers parents face when it comes to surrogacy.
Then keeping calm with rhymes and reasons.
I'm leaving on a jet plane.
How an airport transports passengers to their final destination with a peaceful performance.
In-depth stories that inform and inspire. You're watching Investigate TV Plus.
Nursing homes are designed to provide specialized daily care for some of our most vulnerable family members.
Everything from bathing to dressing to medication management. An estimated 1.2 million people receive care at U.S. nursing homes. But this essential part of our healthcare system faces a serious threat, a critical shortage of workers. I'm Tisha Powell.
And I'm Lee Zurich. According to a recent report by the American Healthcare Association, more than 3/4 of facilities face staffing challenges, which prompted the government to implement the biggest change to federal nursing home regulations in 3 decades. Advocates say the new minimum staffing standards could significantly improve nursing home care and safety, but the move isn't without controversy.
The long-term care industry says facilities won't be able to meet what one group calls an impossible mandate.
Reporter Heather Graff has an in-depth look at a plan that aims to solve the shortage.
She was beautiful. Her house was perfect, not a thing out of place. And food for days. She would cook days in advance for her family.
For Mary Ellen Cross, being a grandma was everything.
It was mostly about grandkids for her.
And with 13 of them, it was practically a full-time job.
Her school sports, dances, recitals, anything like that. She loved it.
But Karen Lambert says for her mother, that time was cut short.
They put her through so much hell, especially the last week of her life.
Mary Ellen was living at Mount Lebanon Rehabilitation and Wellness Center in Pennsylvania when she died in March 2022. She had been there less than a year, during which Karen says her mother fell dozens of times, sometimes requiring hospital treatment.
She would fall, she would get bruises, she would have cuts on her. No one was watching her.
Karen says transferring Mary Ellen from the Mount Lebanon facility wasn't an option, as no other nursing homes in the area had openings.
How do you think the staffing levels impacted the quality of care there?
Terrible. There was not enough help.
She's now filed a lawsuit against the nursing home alleging negligence.
If they would have had more help, if they would have done the things they were supposed to do, she would not have fallen as much, hitting her head. How many times can you hit your head?
When we reached out, an attorney for Mount Lebanon declined to comment, but in a legal filing, the facility denied some of Lambert's allegations and didn't respond to others. The nursing home is now under new ownership. Even so, experts say this is a problem that stretches well beyond that facility alone.
What are some of the ways that patients are impacted by challenges such as staffing shortages?
It's a huge impact.
Lori Smetanka is the executive director of Consumer Voice, a national nonprofit that advocates for the rights of long-term care residents.
The result of all of the short staffing is that people's health is not what it should be. They're declining in terms of their ability to function, in terms of the outcomes that they have, and their quality of life is diminished.
In an effort to fight that decline in care and quality of life for nursing home residents, the federal government has implemented the first ever nationwide staffing minimum for facilities participating in Medicare and Medicaid. It was finalized in April 2024 and includes more than 15,000 homes.
This is really the first major change that we've seen in a very long time, and it's really an important one.
The regulation requires nursing homes to provide each resident with nearly 3.5 hours of care per day at a minimum, and have a registered nurse on site at all times. That means thousands of additional caregivers will need to be hired at facilities across the country because prior to this new mandate, federal law only required they have sufficient staffing.
Do you believe it will improve care?
Absolutely.
Though most states already had their own minimum staffing standards, Smetanka says the majority of those fall far short of the new regulation.
The more staff that are available and providing care to residents and facilities makes an enormous difference.
But American Healthcare Association CEO Cliff Porter says it's too strict.
Can nursing homes meet these new federal requirements for minimum staff levels?
Yeah, unequivocally no.
His organization, which represents thousands of long-term care facilities, reports that more than 700 nursing homes have closed since the start of the pandemic. Porter says the mandate could lead to even more.
We don't have enough staff now. And if you make a requirement to hire more than what currently exists and no plan to help address supply, then I call that a recipe for failure.
To help long-term care facilities achieve compliance, the final rule provides a staggered time frame that will take years to fully implement. It also offers exemptions based on workforce unavailability and other factors.
Will that help ease the transition at all for facilities?
Well, I mean, on the surface, it would appear that way, but the structural workforce shortage has existed for decades. So to think that we're going to automatically somehow resolve this structural deficit in 2 years is not a realistic expectation.
Even so, Porter acknowledges the problem with staffing needs to be addressed.
These are very vulnerable people and folks that need care, and there has to be a system that has accountability to ensure that providers and operators are doing that.
Smetanka says there's a simple way to improve recruitment and secure the employees needed to care for hundreds of thousands of older Americans.
They need to be paid more. They need better training and better supervision, and they need to be supported so that they also are not only being able to take care of themselves and their families, but then translate that into better care for the residents that they're responsible for.
Back in Pennsylvania, Karen says she will continue to seek justice for her mother.
She should be here with her grandchildren, with her great-grandchildren.
And a better tomorrow for so many others like her.
No person should ever have to go through what she went through. She did not die with dignity.
While patient advocate groups like Consumer Voice call the new mandate an important first step, it's also faced legal pushback. In May 2024, the American Healthcare Association, along with the Texas Healthcare Association and several long-term care facilities, filed a lawsuit against the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services for exceeding their statutory authority. A few months later, a coalition of 20 states filed a similar suit saying the rule should be vacated, with Iowa Attorney General Brenna Bird calling it an attack on senior care. As for non-compliance consequences, facilities that don't adhere to the mandate could face potential monetary penalties, payment denials, or provider agreement termination.
Still ahead, an emerging profession is helping people talk about death.
We spend more time planning our annual vacation than we spend thinking about the last phase of our life.
We have an in-depth look at death doulas and how they help families plan for their final phases of life.
Plus, the path to parenthood isn't always linear.
My doctors did not want me to carry a pregnancy, but I was determined that I wanted a child.
We share a family's journey with surrogacy and take an in-depth look at the patchwork of laws across the country that could be roadblocks for hopeful parents. For couples who can't conceive, a beacon of hope to grow their family is through a surrogate pregnancy.
According to the Cleveland Clinic, the most common type of surrogacy is a gestational surrogacy, where one person carries and delivers a child for another couple or person. This is most often achieved through in vitro fertilization or IVF.
As the technology developed, so did interest in the possibility of surrogates getting paid. According to the group Circle Surrogacy, first-time surrogates can earn between $55,000 and $70,000.
However, making money from a surrogate pregnancy is illegal in 2 states.
One of them is Louisiana, where a cheer coach wanted to grow her family by paying a surrogate, but wasn't allowed.
Reporter Elizabeth Vowell shows us how a friend stepped up to help her become a mom.
Legs. There you go. Come on, Izzy.
Rachel Pearson is the owner of Cheer Force Athletics.
Better timing. Let's go, you got it.
For nearly 25 years, she and her close team of coaches have helped hundreds of athletes every year chase their dreams of big stunts.
Come on, kids.
And bigger trophies.
When you do competitive cheer, I see them more than I see my own family.
Down 1, feet, and down 7.
But there was a dream of her own she struggled to make happen.
Even when I was a little girl, I was the one that was, playing with all my little cousins, taking care of them, so I always wanted kids.
Rachel has a congenital heart defect. That and other medical complications meant getting pregnant was out of the question.
My doctors did not want me to carry a pregnancy, but I was determined that I wanted a child.
So Rachel and her husband turned to surrogacy, which presented another challenge.
Okay, who's gonna carry a baby for us? Like that's a tough thing,
Louisiana only passed a law outlining the legal requirements for surrogacy in 2016.
It's pretty common.
Attorney Amy Kern specializes in helping families struggling with fertility and helped shape the legislation. But she says lawmakers did not lay an easy path. In Louisiana, there has to be a medical need for a surrogate. The embryos have to come from the intended parents, who must be a married couple. And before the process can start, both the parents and the carrier must go through several court filings and legal hoops to protect everyone involved. You also can't pay a gestational carrier, which Kern sees as the biggest barrier.
The reason that's a barrier is that, it's kind of, apparent, but, you're not able to compensate them. So you've got to try to find someone who's willing to be pregnant for someone else, give birth, and then have that baby not be their biological child, but, go home with someone else, which is a lot to ask.
Rachel did have someone who was willing to try. But after years of rounds of IVF and failed transfers, it seemed her dream of a baby would remain just that. When her doctor suggested trying again with another carrier, Rachel thought back to her other family at Cheer Force.
There we go, good Brindley!
And her longtime friend and coach, Kay Schenk.
So then I just started thinking, and I'm like, I have someone that I think I could ask. And so it took me a while to get the nerves up to even ask.
Kay had already given birth to 3 kids and knew about Rachel's struggles to start a family. So when she got a message asking if she'd be willing to be a gestational carrier,
yes! No hesitation. So for me, it was no big deal. It was no big sacrifice or anything like that. I loved Rachel and her husband, Kevin. I just felt like they deserved a baby, and it's like, if I can do something to help, yes.
Finally, after 10 years of trying and failing and waiting and praying.
Hey, can you meet me outside the gym? I got something to tell you. And I'm like, what? And she's like, look. And she's showing me a pregnancy test. And I'm like, what? What? She's like, I'm really good at reading these things. And I'm pretty sure this says positive.
Kay gave birth to little Nora on Rachel's 41st birthday.
She weighed the same as me, and I think she was even the same length as me. It was crazy, but it was a special day. It was the best birthday present ever that I could, ever get to this day. She's my best friend and my birthday buddy.
Nora is now 5 years old, and while her Nana Kay is still very much a part of their lives.
Oh, she won't give me the time of day. She's been like that her whole life.
There we go.
Surrogacy is often surrounded by misconceptions and questions, and the process is not easy in Louisiana. But for Kay and Rachel and Nora, it's simple. It was a gift of love.
We've created a bond that's here to stay.
The only other state that prohibits compensation for surrogacy is Nebraska.
Still ahead, the key to calm. How musicians are striking the right chord in an unlikely place.
People come up to us often and say, just with all the lines and all the hassle, it's soothing and it's so nice.
But first, finding peace in planning your final farewell.
What we try to strive for is as few regrets as possible at a very challenging time.
We examine a growing profession helping families plan for their loved ones' final goodbyes. Conversations about death can be uncomfortable, but there is a profession working to make them a bit easier.
You've probably heard of birth doulas who help families bring a baby into the world. There's an emerging industry of people who help with a similar plan, but for death.
They're called death doulas or end-of-life doulas. According to an organization that represents death doulas worldwide, they're hired to provide companionship, comfort, and guidance for those planning for death. We sat down with a death doula who says she has more than 35 years of experience in the aging services industry.
Reporter Jen Pachano speaks with her about helping clients plan the end of their lives.
We spend more time planning our annual vacation than we spend thinking about the last phase of our life, and we need to do that. We need to be prepared.
Annie O'Neill has a background and a business in geriatric care management. As part of that, she offers her services as a death doula.
What we try to strive for is as few regrets as possible at a very challenging time.
Death doulas have been around for 15 years, originally working with hospice care, going to a hospital to be the first one in once a patient was given a terminal diagnosis. Rather than focusing on the people around the patient and their anticipatory grief, she says an end-of-life doula focuses on the patient.
I believe that no good decision is ever made in a crisis. I always try to help people stay ahead of the curve.
She helps patients talk about their pain management options, navigate decisions about care, and where and how they want to live out their last days.
And when I begin to notice signs of decline, even subtle signs of decline, I'm able to say to them, let's talk about some additional support.
Dr. Laura Hoeksema is the medical director for Cleveland Clinic Hospice. She's seeing a shift in more people thinking about the dying process and things like if they would prefer to die at home or anywhere but home.
You think of when we come into this world, there are birth plans, there are birth doulas. There's a lot of education and reaching out to neighbors who've had children before and asking them what the experience has been like. And we haven't exactly done that same thing when it comes to death.
Dr. Hoeksema says death has become less medicalized in this country and more personal. Both she and O'Neill say they'd like to see more people taking advantage of this kind of service.
Having some relatives who have passed away, a lot of that does make sense. It's better to know what they want and kind of have a plan moving forward.
Yeah, a lot of this is for the family, not necessarily for the deceased or the person who is dying. Well, we found the cost to hire a death doula varies depending on the doula's years of experience and the services they offer. According to GoodRx, they can range from $25 to $100 per hour, and they're typically not covered by insurance. As of April 2025, the International End-of-Life Doula Association acknowledges there's no government or industry oversight for end-of-life doulas, but it does offer its own training program for about $600. The nonprofit says it's trained more than 7,000 doulas worldwide.
Still ahead, he may have an imperfect performance venue.
You don't get that often out in other places. You do have to put up with some of that.
But there's nowhere else he'd rather play, bringing out their inner child where travelers can find peace among chaos.
From long lines to delays, the airport is no stranger to stress.
But at one airport, you'll find peace among the pandemonium.
Reporter Bonnie Silkman shows us how.
The typical sights and sounds of an airport may hold a different tune in Portland, Oregon. In the midst of the chaotic crowds and carry-ons, something may strike a chord.
People come up to us often and say, just with all the lines and all the hassle, you know, all of that, just to hear the piano, it's soothing and it's so nice.
Paul Herman is one of 30 musicians who volunteers their time and their talent to bring a little peace to an unlikely place. Portland International Airport sets the stage for an always changing audience from all around the world.
It happened just after 9/11. They brought in a piano just to kind of ease passengers back into flying. And it started from there, and it's taken off, and now there's, I think, 25 or 30 of us that are part of the program here.
Tell me that you wait for me.
It all started with just one piano. Now 5 of them are scattered throughout PDX. But this spot is Paul's favorite.
It's a sanctuary.
You'll often find him playing below the stunning new timber roof, alongside beautiful live trees, and on top of a familiar carpet.
For me, getting to play here, I tell people I play in a palace. You'll get a lot of families, especially young families with kids, that are really kind of mesmerized by the music. And you don't get that often out in other places. You do have to put up with some of that, but you know, you just keep going.
But his favorite part of this gig is what he hears from you.
Just think about all the people traveling. Each one has a story, and some of those stories are like just heart-wrenching, really.
Already I'm so lonesome I could cry.
It's so fulfilling, really beyond anything else that I've done.
So hopefully, the next time you're navigating the airport, a little harmony can help change your tune.
I'm leaving on a jet plane. I don't know when I'll be back again.
And that's it for us on Investigate TV Plus. I'm Lee Zurich.
And I'm Tisha Powell. Thanks for watching. On the next Investigate TV Plus, a former pharmacist who admitted to diluting life-saving drugs for thousands of patients is granted early release from prison.
He should be serving his full time in prison.
We take an in-depth look at the case and conviction. Plus, we speak to the families who want him to face murder charges for the deaths of their loved ones.